Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you joining us today for our member meeting for DigiTex members across the state. I think it's, as we've been talking about a little bit before this meeting, it's a rather extraordinary time right now in our country, and there are some pretty extraordinary and serious events going on in our U.S. Capitol. So we're not tone deaf to that, and we recognize that that is going on. We appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And certainly if something occurs, I have the news on over here next to me, and if something occurs that we feel it's best to postpone the meeting or discontinue, we will do that. But let's go ahead and continue with our business today. I do want to thank Nicole Throne, our closed captioner from Caption Sync, as always, for providing our live captioning today. And you will be able to see that at the bottom if you click on CC at the bottom of your screen, where she's also provided a link to the, a direct link to the text if you're going to need that. We have an ambitious agenda today, I would say. So we're going to start with a word cloud of how you're feeling about the semester coming up. I'll give a brief overview of some things I've been hearing about regarding the 87th legislative session that is starting on January the 12th. And then we have some guests from Acadium who are going to talk about some initiatives, particularly focusing on how we can better utilize course sharing strategically to solve challenges that we might have at campuses across the state. So I appreciate our Acadium partners joining us today for that. And then I'll turn it over to Ursula to talk about Texas Quality Matters, the Texas Quality Matters Consortium, a little bit of news about upcoming webinars, our OER initiatives that are going on, very exciting initiatives there, talk a little bit about our research initiatives. And then I'm going to turn it over to Heather Walker, our Senior Administrative Assistant Extraordinaire, to talk about communications with you. Along the way through all of this, we've built in some opportunities for some feedback, for some ideas that you might have regarding future directions for our work in these areas. But I will start, I will say, with an interactive activity here quickly that we can do on the platform Mentimeter. Hang on one second, I'm just checking my messages to make sure. Oh, good, thank you. Heather is going to drop in links to this as well as a variety of other things that I'll be talking about today. But let me go here to Mentimeter, and we are interested in hearing about how you feel about the semester, the spring semester. And so let me just, let's see here, escape, whoop. Escape here, pull this up. There we go, you're going. Good. So you can go to mentimeter.com and use the code 81391. You can do that on your phone, on your mobile device, on your computer, what have you. And we've already said someone feels hopeful. Thank you for starting on a positive note there, but I think predictably, I know I feel this way, a little bit anxious, stressed. I hear that, everyone. Stressful, grateful, that's nice to hear, and excited, that's very nice to hear. I know I've heard some express, surely there's nowhere to go but up from where we've been, so I hesitate to say that though, one never knows, but curious, blessed, oh how lovely, expectant, yeah, I know that feeling. Good, let's take just one more minute to see. So hopeful, excited. We've got some really positive things that it looks like. Busy, haha, yes, I can imagine that. Prepared, maybe, I love that. That's great. Worried, wild. Oh, we've got someone who feels wild. I guess that could be taken in a variety of ways, couldn't it? Great. Oh, thank you all. I appreciate it. I'll go ahead and close that, but I do appreciate the feedback, and it's nice. It's nice hearing some very similar things to the way that I'm feeling, and I bet you all feel the same. Crazy. I'm curious. I bet you feel the same way. Ready. Okay, I can't talk to whoever says they feel ready. No, I say good for you. Glad to hear that for you. Okay, let's go ahead and move forward. And I just wanted to take a few moments to share some things that I've been hearing from a variety of sources about what to expect, particularly related to digital higher education regarding the upcoming session that's going to start when that gavel hits on January 12th. You know, in general, what we've been hearing a lot about is that there's going to be fewer bills for a variety of reasons. a focus on the nearly $5 billion shortfall that is occurring in Texas. This is going to include things like potentially budget cuts, new revenues from things like sin taxes and the like, managing the healthcare and education crises. And then what, is the one kind of definite mandate is remapping districts to match the roughly 30 million residents that Texas has according to the 2020 census. So the legislature has to engage in that activity regardless of anything else. Of course, we know that much is going to be shaped by the governor's agenda because he is up for re-election in 2022. But more to the point of DigiTex and Texas community colleges, the Texas Tribune did quote Turner, who's the chair of the House Higher Ed Committee, as saying that another focus of the session should be on establishing a bipartisan coalition to expand access to high-speed broadband across the state, particularly to support access for underserved and rural populations. So we can see that probably is going to be a focus, and I think all of us are probably glad about that. Texas Association of Community Colleges, under which auspices we serve, they have two main priorities, no surprise here, formula funding, and at least ensuring that we continue formula funding at its current rate for community colleges. And the second priority is workforce and economic recovery. It seems primarily through their TRUE initiative that stands for Texas Reskilling and Upskilling Through Education. The coordinating board, I have not personally seen the priorities that they send over to the legislature. I assume they've already done that, but I haven't seen them. But I would say that given the fact that they've created a new division of digital learning, and it seems an increased focus on digital learning, I think there's a positive focus there on digital education in general, distance education, online learning, and I can only imagine that the priorities that they sent to the legislature would reflect that. They've hired Dr. Michelle Singh to lead that division, highly respected member of the Texas higher ed community, and OER is a major part of the digital education that they're focusing on. So I'm hoping that we'll see a continued interest in supporting OER and similar initiatives. However, because of the other priorities that I've mentioned before, we're also hearing the word on the ground is that kind of smaller priorities like that, and I'm putting that in quotes, that's just some terminology I've been hearing. Those may not get as much hearing as they might have pre-pandemic, so we'll have to see. And the last thing I wanted to say is that in terms of DigiTex specifically, we obviously are hoping for reallocation of our exceptional item funding at its current level of $469,321 per annum. We'd love to see more, but I think we're going to be grateful if we can continue that funding amount. Now, I think we all know that the legislature, the LBB, has already announced 5% across the board cut for state agencies and higher education institutions. That would include us, and we have submitted a justification for that for our current allocation to continue. So as with all of you, we will stay tuned on that. We did also, by the way, respond back in August to the House of Representatives request for information on interim charge 4, which is related to online learning and related initiatives, OER, et cetera. So we did submit that response to that interim charge. So I think we'll all just see what happens once that gavel pounds on January 12th. That's pretty much all we can do, except I have asked Van Davis. Dr. Van Davis is a frequent collaborator of DigiTex and a close friend of ours. And I've asked him to compile a blog post for the DigiTex blog, giving his perspective, very expert perspective on what we might expect related to digital higher education in the upcoming session. So stay tuned for that. We're hoping we'll get that posted the first week of February. So that's kind of my, in a nutshell, overview of the legislative session. Let me take just 1 minute. Does anybody else have anything to add to that? Something glaring they think I've missed? Other things that they're hopeful for? Just take a pause here for a second. Feel free to unmute or put anything you want to in the chat box.
I'm not sure if this is a valid comment or not. It's just something that I read. I know that for this coming session for the legislature, one of the, I believe it's a senator, is going to propose changing the times that the Senate meets. So instead of being every 2 years and that funky thing formula that they do, it's going to be once a year, or they're going to do it every year instead of just every 2 years.
Angela, I had heard some rumblings of that too. That was Angela, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard some rumblings of that too. And certainly there would be some definite advantages of that, I think, instead of doing it on the biennium. So I guess we'll have to stay tuned about that. But thanks for reminding me of that, Angela, because that could be pretty significant for us.
I think so, because it may give us an easier time of doing the budgets and trying to allocate the money if we're doing it annually instead of biannually. So
it's a little like getting paid once a month versus twice a month. It's easier to budget personally than twice a month, right, Angela? And Chris, I just saw your comment. Any chance I could provide a copy of the text justification request? You bet. I would be happy to, Chris. Yeah, I'll send that out to everybody in the meeting. And you can feel free to pass it along. It certainly should be public knowledge. So thanks for asking that, Chris. And if you would like to see a copy of our response, which also is public knowledge to the interim charge 4, I'd be happy to send that as well. So just anyone email me or drop something in the chat if you want to, and I'll get that to anyone who's curious. Please send both. You bet, Gay. I'll do that. I will do that. Okay. Well, in the interest of time, because we do have a full agenda, why don't I go ahead and move forward and just talk a little bit about our partnership with Acadeum, which I have found to be a very they've just been incredibly generous, informed, expert partners when it comes to course sharing. And I have really appreciated that. One of the things that they have done for us, as I had mentioned at our last member meeting, was create a dashboard that enables me to be able to see real-time data about our course sharing partnership. And so what I wanted to show you, and then I'll come back to the slide and turn it over to Jack and Brock Hansen from Acadeum has joined us as well. It's just to show you just this overview of the cumulative enrollments, the enrollment activity on Acadeum's platform for our consortium specifically. And as you can see, there has been a steady increase in enrollments. And I think that is what we want to see. That's a very positive thing. We may not be quite at the level of enrollment that we want, but I think we're getting there. And I think that this graph helps to show that. We have nearly 500, as of yesterday when I checked, 497 cumulative enrollments since January of 2020 through Acadeum. At DigiTex campuses and beyond, when you count students across the country who are enrolling in some of our DigiTex colleges courses. Courses in chemistry, math, and Spanish continue to be the most popular. We had 82 enrollments for fall and 121 enrollments so far for spring, but I expect that number to go up quite a bit. So I think that we're really heading in the right direction in terms of expanding course sharing across Texas to the benefit of our students. And I want to just say how grateful I am to those of you who are participating, and in some cases quite actively and extensively, in course sharing to support student success. Now I want to go back to the screen, and I'd like to turn it over, or actually I'm going to stop my share here and let Jack Fox from Acadeum share his screen so that he can talk about briefly our partnership, Acadeum's partnership, which involves DigiTex, obviously, in the League for Innovation in the Community College. This is a new, very exciting partnership for Acadeum and DigiTex as well. And then they're going to talk a little bit about a new focus group that we are hoping to create among members of DigiTex for strategic growth of course sharing and exploring ways that you could potentially solve challenges at your institution through course sharing. So Jack, let me go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay, well, thank you, Judith, and thank you for the kind words. And first of all, I just want to wish everybody a happy new year, and just give you my big thank you from us at Acadium for those that have participated, those that have inquired, and those are in the process. And while we obviously actively work with folks that are on the platform, I think that we are there to support Judith and schools that even have an interest. And so I will be reaching out shortly, as I normally do, to follow up with schools just to see our current schools, what we're doing for spring, and then schools that maybe haven't participated if there's some interest today. And and I can tell you that I do know that having a wife that works at a university here where I live, COVID presented tremendous amounts of challenges, which we know, but it took your normal workload and probably added another 50% on top of that with meetings and discussion and where we're at and what's happening. And it's just amazing. And I guess it's like a storm where I think that I see the end in sight. I hope it is, but obviously we're still in the pandemic, and I know schools are still operating in various modalities. But I guess my heart goes out to you, because I do know that it's very challenging, working in your environment to begin with, and then you add something like this, and with a group of people ranging from 17 to up on age, and it's quite difficult to herd those cats. But with that said, I just want to introduce and let him introduce himself. We do have I call him a new team member, but it seems like he's been around a long time. But Brock Hansen, who's come on board to really help us focus on really supporting our schools in a very strategic, operational way, to make sure that we really partner together on goals, making sure that we both do our part. And he's brought just a tremendous amount of I guess, knowledge to our company. We're in our, ending up our 4th year, and he's just brought a tremendous amount of knowledge. So I'll let Brock introduce himself real quick.
Hi there. Jack, I've been here since August, so I think at this point we can call ourselves old friends. So it must seem a whole lot shorter, but I appreciate the opportunity to join you all today. As Jack said, I was brought in as the Vice President of Account Management to really kind of boost our engagement with our partners and really develop a strategy that enables a consultative approach, which is kind of what you're seeing from Jack as we move forward. And he'll talk about some of the ways that we'd like to engage more with you. And that is a function of really kind of progressing ourselves in the account management arena. So that is my responsibility, and I'm happy that I got the invite today. So thank you, Judith, for inviting both of us, and I look forward to meeting and talking with many of you in the future. So thanks, Jack.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's an interesting time because when I started the company when I started with the company a little over 2 years ago, I think there was about 8 folks with the company. We're probably approaching 30, probably 20 I have not met because of COVID, and I see them every week. I've actually met Brock when he was in Austin. But there's so many people that are working on our teams today that I've not met actually in person, and that may not happen obviously till this summer. But just to give you a real quick update, then we'll really get into the meat of what Judith has asked us to talk about today. But we feel really good about year 2020. I mean, as far as working with DigiTex, everything else obviously we don't like about 2020, but we have 16 very active institutions. We've got 3 additional that are in progress to come on board. Some of the really neat things that I've seen is a lot of schools that came in just to be an HI to start with have now migrated over to be a TI. They may be offering a small set of courses, but it's good to see the richness of the diversity in our courses that are being offered. And I know Howard College, we're working with them today to bring on their courses for the deaf and hard of hearing, which is not just about additional courses. It's about those courses that are hard to do on your own campus, but they have the support and the expertise to do that. So we're very excited about that. We continue to work with schools, and obviously what we find is that DigiTex is interesting since you've been around since the 1998. The majority of our schools have been in course sharing, probably anywhere from 1 to 3 years. And so it's interesting to compare and contrast a mature consortium like DigiTex with some of our, I wouldn't call them immature consortium, but more new consortiums like our Council for Independent Colleges. But what we find is we'll continue to work with schools to provide support to your pathways, obviously expanding catalog, and that's what we'd love to see about additional TIs coming on board. Love to see the dialogue on the Google groups about schools that need a course for the spring, who's offering it for summer. That's really a neat way for folks to get engaged and make sure you serve your students as well. And then obviously, as we talk to schools, progress and degree completion tends to be one of the top uses for the platform. And then we'll get into current case studies. We're not going to talk about the current case studies, but Judith and I, or Judith and Acadeum, are working on some case studies with some of the schools, much like a little bit more in depth, and much like the article we were able to get written in Forbes last spring. We hope that this case studies lands us in something like Forbes, or maybe one of the true higher education journals out there. So we do bring some resources, and Judith, I think, is very grateful for that, but we do bring some resources with professional journalists, a PR firm that really helps facilitate this on our behalf and on DigiTex behalf. So we plan to do more of that in 2021 and beyond. So going forward, we're looking and working with Judith. I mean, Judith's obviously playing the lead role in looking for grant proposals and funding to help support not only course sharing, but some of those support items you need for course sharing, OERs, and other items. We're going to expand some of our value added services this year for 2021, and those would be training, webinars. Now, when I say that, we always tap the schools, because the people best to do the training are the people who are actually doing the job. And we've done very well in some of our other consortium about sharing best practices, really getting into the nuts and bolts. So we really do look forward to expanding kind of webinars and training, in addition to what Judith provides under DigiTex. We continue to enhance the products. And obviously, when we get into focus groups, that's some of the things that could come out of these focus groups. And then we'll talk a little bit about how we're expanding the DigiTex networks. So a couple of things I want to talk a little bit more in detail is focus groups and a new national partnership we have. But if there's any questions at this point, let me take that before I move to the next slide. So late in 2020, I believe it was in December, Acadium signed a national partnership with the League for Innovation. I'm assuming most schools are familiar. Not every school on the call, or not every school within DigiTex, is actually a member today, but we did sign a national agreement with the League for Innovation. And really what this will do is create a national 2-year community college consortium. Much like DigiTex, much like Maryland Online, this would be a national consortium. And really what that provides is a national reach. So a TI within DigiTex could see more opportunities to teach outside of Texas. An HI might see courses that we struggle with getting onto our platform from the DigiTex schools, maybe offered by a school outside of Texas. So there would be some opportunities both for the TIs and the HIs. So just two little things with the national consortium is, if you decide to participate as a school, there's no additional cost or setup. Basically, we just formed that new consortium, and allows you to work within that arrangement. There would be one additional document a school would sign, and it's really a consortium agreement. It's very similar to the consortium agreement you've signed with DigiTex. So participation is school driven. We certainly anticipate that not every school is going to be interested in a national consortium. If you are interested, you still would participate just like DigiTex. You may prioritize as a teaching institution, as a home institution, to work within DigiTex first, and what you can't find in DigiTex, you might look to find on the national consortium. And even within that national consortium, you can pick and choose how you want to work. So nothing would really change. It would just expand really a consortial arrangement beyond the walls or borders of Texas into a national. We have had some conversations with a couple of teaching institutions within DigiTex, because really we've got to build the inventory first for the league, and then the home institutions will come later. But we're really excited about this. And if you know much about the League for Innovation, their real fundamental vision and mission is to support access, student success. And that's really why they latched on to us as far as being able to, provide support for this national consortium. Judith, any comments or questions on that?
No, thank you so much, Jack. I do think it's a very exciting opportunity for us, so thank you.
Okay. And the nice thing, I will tell you this, obviously we've had discussions with other 2-year consortiums, and they're somewhere in progress. But I can, whenever we work with the league or other different partners, even some of our 4-year private institutions, there's a high interest and a high positive feedback on the schools within the DigiTex network. And we do know that we have DigiTex schools teaching outside to four-year private schools. But it seems to be one of the consortiums that most people get interested in. A couple of other items I didn't put here because we're early into the process that would be some opportunities for the DigiTex schools is we are working with a company for a national dual credit partnership, as well as a tuition reimbursement through this same company. And then also a company for kind of certification courses for credit, which may allow you to bring in, these high value Google certs, Facebook certs to your institution for credit. So we've got a couple of things, and we always, I think our company always says, how does DigiTex fit into this first? And then we think about how the other consortiums fit in because of the value that y'all add to these other consortiums. So last, we're always interested in learning more about our consortiums and our institutions that we serve. And so we've done a fairly, I think, good job working with our four-year private institutions, primarily because one, they were new. So they're they're learning things for the first time and they're giving us feedback. And really what it's yielded on our four-year privates is a set of strategies that schools actually use course sharing for. And these are not theoretical. They come to us from our schools. They describe how they go through the process, and they usually, in most cases, document the outcomes. Some have documented retention increases and graduation increases of up to 10%. And these are very quick returns. Some schools focus on the revenue. Some schools focus on access and affordability. But we do know that we have about 20 of these strategies that our four-year privates have described to us, and allows us to bring those best practices to other four-year privates. We know that there's a lot there, when you compare a 20-year consortium to a two-year consortium. So we know there's a lot there, and we began doing some of that work one-on-one with some of the schools that may be tired of hearing from us, but we do know that some of that's there. So really, when I look at the focus group, and we hope that each and every one that's on the call will participate, we're not limiting this. In fact, it would not be as good a focus group process if this is limited to only folks currently participating in course share. Some of the most valuable input we will get is from those that have decided not to or have not decided to participate yet. So the purpose really is to identify the challenges and opportunities facing the two-year sector. And we don't really see this limiting the scope to course sharing because Judith has other resources and opportunities to provide support, whether it's OER, Quality Matters. And also, as we write grants, sometimes it's interesting how you can connect course sharing and other items that make that grant more impactful. And so the process is we'll be looking at multiple sessions, and we'd like to open this up to multiple stakeholders on campus. So certainly, I hope that every DigiTex coordinator or person in charge of DigiTex participates. But we also know there's directors of student success, your provost. We've had lots of input from several presidents. So we see multiple sessions and opening this up to multiple stakeholders. And we may segment those if we can get some like one for retention and one for course share, but we'll figure out how that goes. But we certainly want to make sure that this is as broad as it can be and that we get input. The payoff for the school, obviously, and the payoff for us is that we can share the results of this with everyone. Whether you participate or not, you will get kind of the results of what we have found, and then some of our recommendations going forward, and some of the things that we'll look at implementing together with DigiTex. It will be very beneficial in supporting Judith in her search for grant funding. She is working on one right now with a foundation that we introduced her to, the Greater Texas Foundation, which obviously supports TAC quite a bit. I think that's very positive, and I'm optimistic that there will be money garnered. Also, y'all probably could remember that last year that Lumina Foundation made a major investment in Acadeum. They made that investment because, in their words, that there's probably not a for-profit company like Acadeum that could impact the 60 by 30 as significantly as we could. And I think y'all know that by using course share. So We're not going to be the grant seeker, but we certainly can introduce and solicit and help you to support these grants. So we do think that this information could be valuable in getting money back to DigiTex, which in turn can support you and your activities on campus. And then last is really what we want to do here. Let me make sure I get there. We have something just like this for our 4-year privates. And really what we want to ultimately get to is understanding some of the opportunities that you have and then connecting those with how DigiTex and Acadeum can support those. And really when we look at our 4-year privates, and I don't think these windows will be different, it's kind of on the left-hand side, you see items that are focused on student retention, student progress. And then on the right-hand side, you see the institutional, the market competitiveness, efficiency, and quality. And we've done some work with talking to some schools, but I left those bullets off because when we go into these focus groups, we want to start with a blank slate or a blank palette for y'all to draw on. But I think when we get out of this, we can certainly, one, support you better, help you bring these best practices to one another, and then probably even garner more participation in DigiTex as well. So Brock, I went through that pretty quick. Brock is kind of the architect of the kind of getting this input and the architect of these windows. We started with buckets, but windows are much more aesthetically pleasing. But any comments, Brock?
No, Jack, I think you covered it. One of the things that we want to do with this focus group and this idea of a focus group is really to listen and understand the challenges, the opportunities, and the what we would call the I wish list, if you will, around student success or around market competitiveness, so that we can kind of help either adapt or help marry a solution that would work best to ease that pain, to increase efficiency, to reduce frustration, and to help the students along in their journey. But we can't do that until we really have this conversation and get the input from you all, so that we know how we can help. Right. So that's the goal of this focus group, is to just get the input. What are the pain points? Now, we're not going to be able to solve everything, but there certainly may be something that we can help work out that will be certainly beneficial for an opportunity for you. So we really would appreciate as many that want to participate as possible, and tell your friends. Everybody around campus that you think could have an impact on student success or market competitive or revenue generation or long-term value of a student, those types of things, please bring them into the conversation. We would love to hear from everybody.
Brock and Jack, thank you so much. I mean, Acadeum, one of the big benefits with partnering with them is they bring a lot of expertise to bear, but they're constantly thinking up new ways that they can help serve the colleges in Texas and beyond, and therefore our students. So I really appreciate this idea. If you are interested in participating, and remember, as Jack said, we're looking for participants who have participated in course sharing, but also participants who have not. Both would be very valued in the discussions, as Brock and Jack said. So if you're interested, if you would please email me directly and let me know, or have a colleague who is interested email me. And I'll also put out a call on the DigiTex Google group so that we can get as many folks as we possibly can to participate in this endeavor. So Jack, Brock, thank you so much. We really appreciate you both joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Judith, I'll commit to, we'll make it fun. Maybe Judith will even sing a song for us, but we will make it fun. We'll make it, yeah, she's a great singer and guitar player, Brock. But we will make it fun, and maybe we'll find some prizes and fun things to do as well.
I think that's a great idea. Although I don't know, many of you have heard me sing. It might be a deterrent instead, but I think what Jack said, we'll try to make it as enjoyable and as less onerous as we can for everyone. So thank you so much.
And if you don't come, I'll sing. I'll call you up directly and sing to you if you don't come.
Okay.
All right, Judith, we'll drop off there.
Judith, thank you for having us.
Thanks again for joining us. You all take good care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, great. I am going to turn it over now to Ursula Pike, our Associate Director and System Lead for Texas Quality Matters Consortium, to talk a little bit about those activities. Ursula?
Yes, Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, so this year, the Texas Quality Matters Consortium will be establishing an advisory committee, which will be made up of stakeholders from some of the almost 30 institutions in the consortium. And I'm really looking forward to getting feedback from the folks who are implementing Quality Matters on their campus and see how we can improve it, because it's changed a lot and there's a lot of new resources. So on Tuesday, January 12th at 10 a.m., we're having the regular Texas Quality Matters member meeting, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So if you're at one of the institutions in the Quality Matters Consortium, I look forward to talking to you.
Ursula, thank you so much. Your leadership of the Quality Matters Consortium has been nothing less than inspirational to me, I think. And coming up with this idea for an advisory committee, I think is a brilliant one. And, we always want to ensure that the DigiTex staff and DigiTex as an organization aren't making decisions in a vacuum, and that we are soliciting input from those, you all who are on the ground in the trenches doing this work, so that we can be most effective in our service to you. So thank you so much, Ursula. I really appreciate that. Moving forward, I wanted to just talk a little bit about our ongoing series, Hot Topics in Texas Digital Higher Education. Every other month, we hold a webinar, I think as probably most of you know, on a topic in digital higher education. And our next webinar is on OER sustainability. It's going to be held January 27th at 2 p.m. And presenters are going to discuss the sustainability of open education in the context of the work of two groups who have been focusing on this topic to provide significant resources to support post-secondary institutions. These two groups are the Regional Leaders in Open Education Sustainability Work Group of the Community College Consortium for OER, that's a bit of a mouthful, and the Driving OER Sustainability for Student Success, also known as Doers 3. So our presenters are members of those groups and will share the work that they've been doing, but we also in the webinar will be making connections between the work of those two groups and the work in Texas during the webinar, the work that's being done in OER in Texas. So please join us then. I think that Heather has added the link there to our flyer that will have a link in it to register for that webinar. So we hope everyone will join us, and we hope that you'll pass the word on about that. I did want to pause just for a moment, although we're getting a little shorter on time than I thought we would be at this point. We're going to try not to go over. We might have to a few minutes, but we obviously value your time. But I am just curious if there's anyone who has any ideas for future webinars, since we have you here in the meeting. So if you just wanted to unmute, if you had any ideas for webinars in this very general topic area of digital higher ed, or feel free to put it in the chat now or during the rest of the meeting. But let me pause for a second, see if anybody has any hot topics that they would like to see us address. So far, we've kind of been rotating among the various initiatives that we engage in, so including OER, course sharing, and Quality Matters. So we will continue very likely to do that. But Todd, pedagogy versus educational technology, because I think we know those are not the same things. And while they should be in synergy with each other, they aren't always, are they, Todd? So I think, thank you. That's a very good idea. That is a very good idea. Making a note here. Anything else anyone can think of off the top of their head? Okay, please don't hesitate to contact us or post something in the Google group if there is a topic that you're interested in us discussing on a webinar. Of course, be forewarned that we very likely would come back and see if you were interested in speaking on that topic yourself. So it would not be a requirement, though, of suggesting something. So just let us know if you have any interest in any sort of topic. And oh, sorry, let me pause here. Lou said how to convince faculty that pedagogy is not a bad word. Oh, that's a good one, Luz. I'm not sure there's going to be any easy answers to that, but I'll make a note of that as a potential topic of discussion on a webinar. I love that, actually. As a former faculty member, I very much understand that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move forward and just talk a little bit about open educational resources and our initiatives in this respect. And I wanted to mention, this is hot off the press really recently, and I'm going to put something out on the Google group about it, but the scholarly, I always forget the exact name of the Scholarly Publishing and Academic Resource Coalition, or SPARC, which does advocacy in the area of open, they publish periodically spotlights on various states and their OER initiatives. And they just recently published one on Texas and have included the work of DigiTex that we are doing, among others, in Texas. So I think Heather will put a link to that article there if you'd like to take a look at that. But we're very pleased for that sort of visibility for our work, and especially for the really great OER work that's being done in Texas. And if I do say so myself, I think one of our productive initiatives has been the annual conference that we have organized. And we are in the throes of organizing the next one, Open Texas 2021. Let me turn it over to Ursula to talk a little bit about this, because she is really in the trenches of helping to develop the program with the program committee of Open Texas 2021. Ursula?
Yes, and I just put in the chat a link to the website with more information about Open Texas. So registration will open soon. The actual event is March 11th and 12th. It's going to be virtual. And we recently have been finalizing the program. I'm very excited about it. We have a lot of sessions, both sessions for people who are new to OER, but people who have more experience. I think it's going to provide a lot of really good information, and then opportunities for connecting with other institutions across the state and nationally that are doing work in OER. So as soon as the registration opens, we will send it out on all the Google groups and let you know where to do that. And I think, yeah, that's all I have to say about it.
Thank you, Ursula. I will have to say that this program, this conference, also would not be possible without the partners that we are working on it with, and that includes Texas Digital Library and the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. But I also want to give a shout out to Heather Walker, our Senior Administrative Assistant, because she's really been fantastic working on the back end logistics of the conference. So Heather, thank you for the work that you're doing and that you're going to be doing to make sure that this conference can happen. It's funny because originally the conference was supposed to be scheduled for an in-person conference in Houston back in October. And we had to make the difficult decision at that point to postpone it. And then our discussion was, well, if we postpone it, could we go ahead and still have it face-to-face, especially if we're waiting until March to hold it? And then we were just the other day in a meeting saying how we were grateful that we decided to go ahead and hold it virtually in March, because as we all know, it's turning out that a face-to-face conference would not have been a very responsible one, even come this March. So we'll be holding it virtually, but we're very excited about the event and hope to see many of you there. And the other aspect of our OER initiatives I just wanted to briefly mention is that for the second time, we will be partnering with the Coordinating Board and the Institute for the Study of Knowledge Management and Education to conduct the statewide OER survey and landscape analysis. And we'll be sending out additional info about this. We'll have info at Open Texas 2021 on it. But just so you know, our timeline right now, hopefully, is to administer the survey statewide starting March 12th, and we'll close it around April the 2nd. And then we hope to have the final report for this complete by September 30th. And it's going to be housed on the Coordinating Board's new Digital Learning Clearinghouse. So I wish I had more time to discuss it, but we'll be sending out more info, and we're just very pleased to be engaging in what I think is, again, going to be a very impactful analysis of OER initiatives across the state. In terms of research, we are, as Jack Fox at Acadeum mentioned, beginning to engage in research on best practices in digital education at community colleges. We're going to call these case studies, and we're going to highlight the work that you at your colleges are doing. And I am beginning work on the first one of these that is going to focus on course sharing. We're going to highlight the work of Howard College, thank you, Kim, and Western Texas College. And Alicia Anderson, if she's here, or Stephanie Ducheneau, thank you for your contributions. I'm hopefully going to be starting drafting that tomorrow. So stay tuned for that case study. And if you have ideas for future case studies where we might be able to highlight best practices at colleges in this field, then please don't hesitate to let me know. We're going to be looking for future topics for these case studies. But I want to make sure that we have time to talk about this last aspect of our research that we're focusing on here today. This was a brainchild, so you can either thank him or blame him, of Todd Ellis up there at Grayson College. He approached me about an article he had read, and this image that he saw that is a kind of taxonomy, or Todd, I think the word you actually used was typology. They're similar things.
Right.
A categorization of the various ed tech technologies that we have out there. And this kind of focuses on Web 2.0 technologies. But Todd said, boy, wouldn't it be useful if we had something like this updated for Texas? Naturally, I said, wow, Todd, wouldn't it? Would you be interested in working on this? So we've had to delay it because of the pandemic, but we've continued to discuss this a bit, and Todd is very interested in working on it. And I think that what we would like to do is we would like to perhaps create a work group. But let me turn it over to Todd to talk a little bit about this and elaborate on his idea.
Yeah, thank you. Like I said in the chat, I'm passionate about pedagogy. It's kind of why I'm in this, but at the same time, in my position as the director of teaching and learning, and I'm sure a lot of you have to keep abreast of and be very informed about the amount of educational technology that's out there. And so I have been interested in, so I have to keep abreast of, I want to call it the flowering of educational technology in the past few years. Although sometimes from my perspective, it's a bit of a flood of educational technology because it can be a bit overwhelming. Especially since last summer, when more and more of our face-to-face teachers went to remote teaching, which I distinguish remote teaching from online education. A lot of our faculty went to remote teaching, which meant they were teaching by Zoom or Big Blue Button. And I've been trying to inform my faculty about the difference between remote teaching and fully online education, the potential of online education. So now that we're 6 months in, I have more and more teachers who are seeing they need to do more than just teach on Zoom. They need to start looking at other educational technologies. And there's a huge number of educational technologies as it's growing simultaneously. So I've been interested in this typology that helps me immensely. And Judy, I just found one, that same person who did the image you showed was Matt Bauer in Australia. He just did a recent one for 2020. And it is a typology of free educational technology. I can show it if you have time. If you want to give me a screen, I can just show it real quick because it kind of gives a basis of what I want to try next.
Yeah, go ahead, Todd.
Okay.
Thank you. I figured, I know that we're going to be some sources that we can build upon. We're not going to have to start from scratch on this.
So the one he did before, when it said Web 2.0, he's kind of said, the word Web 2.0 is kind of a historical term now because it's kind of all of it's sort of incorporated the newer types of educational technology. But he's recently made, Matt Bauer, he's recently made this one where the center box is free web-based learning technologies. Now this is critical. I've already used it yesterday. I had somebody that they were looking at something called Doodly, and it passed my 2-minute test. Within 2 minutes, I could tell it was a drawing tool, a stylus-based drawing tool online. And but it was $600 a month, or $600 a year. And so I went into here and I clicked on the image-based and looked at some of the free drawing tools that's over here. So this particular typology, Judy, I would recommend to everybody at DigiTex to at least have this as a base, because here's the free ones. So any technology you're looking at, you can look and see, well, what out there is free. And I've been clicking on this first circle here, which is the different types. And it's very educational, even for me, someone who looks at educational technology every single day. There's areas I'm not aware about, like these knowledge organization tools or 3D modeling. I couldn't even tell, or coding, I couldn't even tell you. So now I'm aware of this whole other area of educational technology tools that I don't even know about. So this first circle here is a real important just for any of us to go, here's the types of technologies that are out there if you're looking for helping your departments pick those. So I do think this.
Sure, when you finish talking, will you be sure and drop the link into the chat to that?
Yeah, I have this on a PDF, but I'll get that.
Okay.
I have to get a link to the PDF. But so I think this one's a critical one. It's already done. It's something I can build on. However, also, I'm more interested in two other types. I'll just mention real quick and then wrap it up. I'm interested in putting in the center something to the effect of favorite Texas community college educational tools, or critical or most used. I want to know, because this is broadly speaking, some of the tools are more for K to 12, or it's just as broad as possible. I would be very interested in knowing what are the most used technologies at education, community colleges in Texas. And I don't think, and it won't necessarily be, because it won't necessarily be free, this first circle of types will not be the same. For example, lockdown browser, I'm guessing, is going to be one of the most important used, and that's not reflected in here. So one of the types would be online proctoring tools, and some mention of that. Another tool. So I would like to see that one. I would like to work on. And finally, I came up with, just this morning, I was thinking, what do I want from this? I want to be able to put Grayson College in here, and I'd love to have a template where this first circle is filled out, and then I can look and I can build it over time and see what, because it's going to take me time even to know the technologies my own institution is using. But I could put all of the technology currently being used at Grayson College, and I can sort of keep a handle on that. So it'd be great if I also had a template where I could put my college in the center and sort of plot what all we're using and see what are areas I'm not using at all and what areas I'm not using. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to work on it and hopefully have 2 or 3 people who want to do that as well.
Or more potentially, Todd.
Or more,
Thank
yeah.
you so much. I hope that everyone feels that this could be worth the time for DigiTex to lead, and then hopefully for some of you to work on. So what I would ask you to do, again, if you would please contact me or Todd, or put something out on the Google group if you're interested in joining this, and we'll put out another call on the Google group after the meeting to see who else might be interested, and let's put together a working group, and let's see if we can create something that then can be adapted to local context. So we could create something broad, and hopefully it can be an open access tool that can be revised and reused. So right. Todd, thank you so much. I think we're going to have to move on, yep. But DigiTex will take leadership, and I think Todd will as well. Thank you for being willing. Yep. To see if we can get something like this done in the next, say, 6 to 8 months.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Really appreciate it. Let me just go back to my screen share here. And I unfortunately, we are running out of time, and I know how valuable your time is, everyone. So I wanted to have a discussion on research. But again, please, if you have ideas for research, please send them our way, things that would be useful to you for us to look into for you, on your behalf, with you. It's a big part of our mission and our strategy, and we're wanting to engage in that more. So I just invite you to contact us if you have some ideas for that. And Shantae, thank you for that. Feedback, I appreciate it. And Angela, I had seen yours on first year experience, first year students and their experience in OER. And so I've made a note of that for possible webinars. The last thing that I want to do in the little time that we have is turn it over to Heather, our Senior Administrative Assistant. She has been instrumental in leading our communication efforts, and we've expanded them greatly. And if it weren't for her, we wouldn't have been able to do that, and we wouldn't be able to continue to. But Heather, would you like to give a quick overview of our various communication channels and hopefully have a little bit of time to get some ideas for possible improvement?
Sure. Thank you, Judith. In the interest of getting us out of here, I will keep this very brief. As many of you may be aware, over the past year, one of our big focuses has been on improving our communications with all of you so that you are aware of DigiTex's activities and initiatives. And so to do that, we have implemented a number of old and new communication channels. I'm going to drop a list of links into the chat box here. In the interest of time, I have put them all in at once, so please pardon the massive links here, but they're all labeled for you. So as many of you are aware, most of you have probably been to our DigiTex website. We have upgraded that over the past months. Tried to make it a little bit more organized and user-friendly. And the DigiTex website is, of course, where you can go to find out about our key initiatives and some important resources for you to help you serve your students better. We have our Texas Quality Matters Consortium website, which we are still building out, and many of you may have visited that previously as well. If you have any thoughts about how we could improve that TexQMC website, we would appreciate hearing those from you. We do have our 2 Twitter channels, one for DigiTex and one for the Texas Quality Matters Consortium, and you can see the links for both of those channels in the chat box. We have our DigiTex and Texas Quality Matters Consortium Google groups. I have included the link for the DigiTex Google group in the chat box here. And of course, as you are probably all aware, we use the Google group frequently for announcements for the whole group. So that is a great way to stay on top of some of the most important happenings with DigiTex. And then over the past months, actually in March, we started our DigiTex Connections newsletter. For some reason, the link did not drop in as an active link, but if you want to copy and paste that bit.ly link into your browser, you can access our latest January DigiTex Connections newsletter for all of our recent news. And then we have our YouTube channel where we post our member meetings for both DigiTex and the Texas Quality Matters Consortium, as well as our webinar recordings. And so I know we do not have time in the remainder of our meeting, but as you leave today, if you feel like offering us any suggestions for how we can improve our communication with you or any information that you feel we should be delivering to you and may have missed, please feel free to drop that into the chat box for us.
Heather, thank you so much. As I said, Heather enables us to be able to do the what I think is hopefully a high quality of work and service to you. We really wouldn't be able to do it without her. As all of you know, a good administrative assistant is worth their weight in gold. And so we really appreciate it, Heather. It's not just with the communication that she helps support the staff, the DigiTex staff, but in so many other ways. So really appreciate that, Heather. And we've got 2 minutes left, everyone, so that we can get you out of here. Let me just put this slide up here so that you've got our contact info. But just anyone want to unmute, any feedback you want to give us on research, communication, webinar topics, or any other topic of interest to the group? And thanks for that, Todd. And we'll see if we could send something out on the Google group whenever we send that call for our work group participants. So
Yeah, I have a laptop that doesn't have Adobe, so I can't get a link to the PDF very easily. So
No worry, we'll get that. I'll include it below the video that we post on our YouTube channel as well, so that those who watch this afterwards will be able to see that resource, because I think it's a good one, and it's something that I hope that we'll be able to build on and make even better.
Yep. Thank you.
Ursula, Heather, any last words on your part? Anything I've forgotten or?
No, I think you covered it. Thank you everyone for attending.
Yes, thank you so much. And again, I'd like to thank Nicole Throne, as always, for her great captioning for us, and Caption Sync for being great partners in that regard. And I just want to say in closing, everyone take good care. Good luck with the start of your spring semester. And we are here to serve you. Don't hesitate to contact us if there's any way that we can help make your job easier to support your community college students across Texas. Thanks, everybody. Take care.